Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the BuzzStream podcast. I'm your host, Vince Nero. Today, I am joined by Mike King. He's the founder of iPullRank, speaker, author of a upcoming book, upcoming SEO book, former rapper. He is a fellow Philly sports fan. Mike King, how you doing, man?
Chilling. I'm not a former rapper. I still rap.
Current rapper, SEO expert. Mike, listen, like the main reason I wanted to have you on this podcast today is I want to talk about kind of the future of SEO and the intersection of digital PR. I think is important to our listeners. I know you've been at the forefront of some of the major kind of breaking news and just the crazy tumultuous time we've had in the past year or so in the SEO industry. You were big in the Google leak. It was leaked with you and Rand Fishkin kind of published it. You had some interesting insights there, and you've again been at the forefront of kind of this new paradigm shift into AI and how SEOs are trying to make their way in the world now with all these changes. So before we get into all this stuff, I just want to remind people, like, subscribe. The more you share this stuff, the more I can have great guests like Mike King on. So make sure you hit that like button. All right. So Mike, Google leak.
Mm-hmm.
This was over a year, maybe a year and a half ago, I guess at this point. One of the specific things that stood out to me, obviously coming from BuzzStream and my background is, you had a line in there that was like, we're making digital PR relevant again. And it was some specific insight that you found in there. I just wanted to, give listeners just a taste of what that meant, because I also want to now, after that, position it as like, does that even matter? Does this Google leak thing even matter in today's world?
Yeah, absolutely. It still matters. But the insight that I was highlighting was that we learned that where something sits in Google's index gives it a different level of authority. So they stratify the index into 4 different buckets. There's the high, medium, and low quality, basically. And the proxy for understanding that is like how much traffic and how many rankings does a given page have that's linking to you. But then there's another bucket that they call fresh docs, which is effectively, the links you get from like news and media sites and so on. So they're effectively saying like, hey, all the news stuff needs to sit here because it's more important. And so what I'm saying is that if you're getting links through your digital PR, which is usually from news outlets, those are considered higher quality links. And that's why, you've always seen big impact from getting that. And that definitely still matters now, because the way that things work in these generative experiences is that they don't just look at what ranks for the core query that the user types in. They generate a series of synthetic queries as well, and they figure out what pages rank for that. And then they extract passages from that and then feed all of that to the large language model. And so ranking is still a big part of this, but you getting mentioned in these news outlets, which again tend to rank quite highly, is a good thing to support you having more of those passages that are considered important and fed to those languages.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of all gets into some of the talks that you have been giving recently. I'm going to kind of fast forward to Google I/O. So this Google I/O was a few weeks ago. By the time this comes out, it'll be probably a month or two ago, but it had a big impact on the industry. I think you kind of came out of it a little shell shocked, and then kind of have shifted your tune a little bit to look more at the positives, that there is opportunity, but there needs to be kind of a shift of the way you think, and there need to be some new tools. And the conference that you gave a few weeks before Google I/O kind of set the groundwork, I think, for a lot of this new thinking that you think, SEOs and people in the digital PR community, a link building community need to kind of think about this stuff. So yeah, if you guys haven't checked out any of the SEO week talks, they're available online. Check out iPullRank's website. There's some clips and stuff from there. But so the big concept I think that you've unveiled at SEO week that I'm talking about that is still very relevant and laid the groundwork is this concept called relevance engineering. Mm-hmm. So can you walk us through what relevance engineering is? Because I know there's a particular portion of it that was digital PR and had my lights go off. So let's talk about relevance engineering.
Right. From my perspective, it's really an evolution of like where SEO needs to go. So relevance engineering is the confluence of artificial intelligence, information retrieval, content strategy, UX, and digital PR. And notice I didn't say SEO as one of those things. I'm talking about information retrieval, which is the computer science behind how search engines work. I feel like if you do SEO, you do it well, you're really just a power user of Google. Like you understand what Google has told you, what the best practices are, you know how to like do those things. But there's a subset of people that have always taken things further, where they've really understood technology. They really understood how search engines actually work, what they're actually doing. So you can basically have like a first principles perspective when a new algorithm update rolls out. So when you say like I was shell shocked, absolutely. Like I was sitting here looking at all this new technology, and in the beginning, it was like, how do I reconcile what I know for how things work for how this new stuff works? And it just took me a few days and a whole lot of research to like close the gap in what I know and what we can do. And so I wrote a couple of articles about how AI mode works and how things are evolving. And then also, what are the actionables that we now need to do in alignment with that? But the only reason I'm able to do that is because I have a deep understanding of all those 5 things that I just listed. So I know how information retrieval works, how pages are decomposed, how they, break out these queries and so on. I know how, AI works. I know what vector embeddings are and what they're doing. I know from a perspective of like, how do we make this actionable from a content strategy perspective, and that we need to really lean into things like a semantic chunking, semantic triples, the better readability, things like that. So really understanding how all these different systems and ideas and disciplines work, and then sitting at that intersection of that Venn diagram allows us to figure out like, okay, what is the next level of doing this sort of work in order to, be visible in these new surfaces. And also, I believe that just like saying this is all SEO is a mistake, because one, SEO has a variety of problems. One, there's no standards, got a bad reputation. If you talk to 10 different SEOs about what they do, you get 10 different stories. And I feel like this is a big opportunity for us to reset and also level up the value proposition of what we do, because the user behavior for the channel is changing. The channel itself is changing. What you do in the channel is changing. It's requiring more things. Whereas historically in SEO, Google has driven what it is that we do. Like Google says core web vitals is a thing. Suddenly we're all performance engineers. So we've had to continue to add more and more and more to our job, but people consider SEO as free traffic or a cheap marketing channel. And so you're not getting, a fair value out of what it is that you're providing. And so I feel like this is a good opportunity for us to like redefine and create a new category. And what I'm calling that category is relevance. And
Do you think all industries are kind of equal, have equal opportunity in this new relevance engineering, like in the new AI paradigm?
all industries, I think if we think of search as a series of channels, we've got new channels now, right? Like, so you've got the whole conversational search channels, which are going to be ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, and then also the surfaces that Google has, and then whatever Microsoft is doing on the Copilot side. And these are all different places that people can discover things, right? Like it's not about going directly to a website to do things, because they all have apps as well. And with Copilot, it's built into your operating system if you use a PC. And I'm sure that Apple is going to start to roll out more of this on their side with Apple Intelligence. So these are all new surfaces that take people out of, this Google ecosystem and allows them to do things where they natively do things. So it does open up opportunity dramatically. And at the end of the day, people always have information needs, no matter what your industry is. It's just how often are those information needs coming up, right? So if we're talking about, someone that offers software for creative things, they probably have more opportunity because these people weren't necessarily living in Google all day. They were living in Photoshop. And now you have more opportunities to get visibility or get more interaction directly in Photoshop when you didn't before. So yeah, I think it varies, but there's just more opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what I was getting at when I'm thinking through some of this stuff. I mean, it's the same problems that we have in, say, digital PR or content marketing, where maybe you have a brand that's not as sexy or not super popular, or it's a very small niche. Maybe you sell shoelaces, or you're a plumber or a dentist or something, where it's just like a small local brand. Like, does relevance engineering does that concept still work in kind of small niche brands too? Is it just kind of a smaller version of it? It's not, do all the categories still
I mean,
matter?
if you're a small niche brand, you're a plumber, like I don't anticipate that you're gonna want to become an expert in all these things, right? Like I think that the channels are the channels and the things that you need to do still apply. But do you want to suddenly become an AI expert or do you suddenly want to know information retrieval? Probably not. And to that end, if you just want to continue to do SEO as it's classically been done, go ahead. You're going to get diminishing returns, but go ahead. Like there's still traffic out there for people that are just, making page titles that are 60 characters and writing 500-word blog posts and whatever. It's just not going to be the same volume as the people that embrace this new environment.
Yeah, I mean, well, all right. Let's take the digital PR sliver here, because I want to drill down a little bit into that. Let's first, I guess, get clear on the definition of digital PR in the way that you define it, because I know it can kind of vary depending on who you talk to. So, in relevance engineering, how do you define digital PR?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we have a unique definition of digital PR specifically for relevance engineering. I think it's really about going out, creating partnerships with publishers that are relevant to what it is that you do. I think the only thing that we're doing differently is we're focusing on getting relevant placements rather than just random placements, right? And when I say relevance, there's a very specific definition of that because I think relevance has historically been considered this qualitative idea, but through the lens of a search engine or a large language model or a chat bot or conversational search, they're measuring that mathematically. And we do the same thing. So like, what are the topics being used on this website? Do they map to what it is that we talk about on our website? And, you're effectively using artificial intelligence to calculate that. So what I'm saying here is that the only sites we're going to go after are going to be the ones that have a high relevance for the outreach that we're going to do. But beyond that, I think the mechanics of digital PR are effectively the same, right? Like you're doing outreach, you're putting together some sort of offer that makes sense. And when I say offer, I'm not saying like money. I'm saying like content that's going to be relevant to those folks and looking to get those placement and that coverage from those different sites. So yeah, aside from like being really focused on who you want to partner with, I don't think it's any different.
Yeah. One of the questions I have asked frequently on this podcast is, like, when you get into relevance, is say you're, again, let's use like the plumber example. You're trying to get, mentions. To me, it's tough to kind of understand how relevant like a national news site is, or even a local news site. If the local news site covers everything, within the tri-state area, it's, for instance, like ABC, 6 ABC or something in our area. You're a plumber. It's not like they're a plumber news site, right? So like,
Sure.
how do you measure relevance in those contexts? It is like I guess what I'm getting at is, like, at the end of the day, is getting a link or a mention from a news site just a good thing overall, or do you have to still drill down into that relevance?
So news is generally good overall, but we want to make sure that the story we're getting covered in is relevant to plumbing. Like we don't want a story about, how this plumber gave you a scholarship. Like that's cool. I'm glad you did that, but it doesn't improve the relevance for the core subject of being a plumber. So we would rather have a story that's like, hey, in the metro area, there was a lot of, leaky pipes this year. And this is the guy that solved it. And here's the primary thing he's been finding about that idea. And then getting a link from that. Like that is far better than just a random story about the plumber.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I want to drill down a little bit more into the relevance engineering things. Um, I kind of asked this earlier, but not exactly as detailed. Can people survive if they just kind of take one sliver of the relevance engineering categories? Can you just do the digital PR side and you don't need, some of the other, slivers or that of that Venn diagram?
I mean, I don't think it's like how it was back in the day when you could just build links and it overpowered everything. Google is definitely looking at relevance of links. They're definitely discounting links entirely if there is no relevance at all. So I think you still need to have the bases covered, right? Like you need to have highly relevant content. If we're talking about the conversational search surfaces, then you need to have relevance on a granular level in that you have very specific paragraphs that are highly relevant to what people are looking for. Again, like if you just want to focus on the classic search, the 10 blue links, then sure, just do digital PR and have, your 500-word blog post about the idea with the stock photo or whatever. That can still work. It's just not going to drive the level of traffic that you want in these new environments.
Yeah. And sorry to kind of belabor that point, but I think it's really interesting and important for people to kind of understand that, like, the way that you have talked about this, like the paradigm is shifting. It's not going to be as easy as it was. You can't kind of fake it as you used to be able to. On that note, though, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, there are a lot of these like short-term hacks or kind of like call them like spammy ways that people are discovering to get into AI overviews or ChatGPT answers. What's your take on that? Should people be focusing on those?
Yeah. So I have a big picture thought on this, and then I have like, the more granular channel specific ideas. So what we call spam is not inherently wrong. Like, unless we're talking about like, email spam, which there's laws around, but like you making content that people don't necessarily like or want on the internet is not wrong. That's just like a choice, right? Google has a series of guidelines for what it means to be included in their website. Again, not the law, their opinion, right? ChatGPT has no guidelines like that. So things like cloaking, things like, putting white on white text or whatever, and just showing that specifically to ChatGPT, which would also be effectively cloaking, but like a very specific form of that. You can do that if you want to. It's not against the law. It's just against Google's guide. Now, I don't necessarily recommend it, but there are certainly people figuring out like, hey, this works and it's getting me the short-term visibility that I want. It may even be long-term in ChatGPT because there's a lot of things that they don't do. They don't render pages. So you could potentially show something different using JavaScript that Google can index that ChatGPT can't. And there's a viable use case for that. Like if you have content that ChatGPT can use, well, then your competitors can easily copy your content immediately. So you could be doing things where you're like, okay, this is some unique content that I don't want them to see, so I'm going to use JavaScript to render it. Like that is a viable reason to do cloaking against ChatGPT. So that's my big picture thought. My channel specific thought is basically also what I said, like, don't do it if you want to appear in Google. And I don't anticipate that like for the long haul, ChatGPT is going to be able to allow this stuff. I think they're going to have to smarten up at some point, the same way that Google did, the same way that Alta Vista and all the things before Google did as well. But for the short term, yes, there are definitely those opportunities and a lot of people are capitalizing on them. And one of the main ones that people are using for overviews is just like posting listicles on LinkedIn posts. Voila, you're in the AI overview.
Yeah, that was the main one. I honestly, Mike, I didn't even know about the cloaking thing. Maybe that's a separate podcast we'll get into. But yeah, like the showing up in like best whatever, and that was something that I kind of pointed out in like a link spam analysis that I did of some of these sites that appear to be dropping in Google rankings were sites that, and I've received these a lot, where it's like almost like a link exchange. I called them like with like a ransom note, where it would basically be like, hey, we're going to include you on our best whatever list, but only if you include a link back to us,
Yeah, link outreach has always been so strange. I mean, it's really the skill set that people have for cold outreach for sales, but the people that start out in SEO have no context for that. So they're just like, okay, I'm going to send a million emails. Let's see what I get back. And they only play it as a numbers game, but it really requires like elegance to do well. And so many people try doing things like you just described, and they're like, oh yeah, this is going to work. I read this somewhere, or whatever, whatever. But it's just such a tacky way to talk to somebody.
Right. Yeah, and that's the problem I think I'm seeing in our industry now, and like the digital PR industry, is that there are a lot of traditional like link builders, quote unquote, who are kind of migrating over to digital PR and thinking they can use the same tactics on publishers and journalists. You know, the kind of spray and pray technique, or, you know, you just download a list of journalists that have really probably no relevance to the content that you're pitching, and because you got it from a media database or something. And I mean, think that's going to have a big impact in probably the next 6 months to a year of just journalists are already overwhelmed, but like getting more and more of this spam is just going to hurt things overall. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out.
Yeah. And again, I mean, there's so much overlap between how people do this and how they do cold outreach. And I'm sure you're seeing it in your inbox. I get so many cold emails about cold email services right now, which is only an indication that there's going to be so many more people that are using these tools, and you know, tools are going to be adding more AI features that allow this to like scale even further. And it's just going to be a bigger mess. And, you know, back in the day, I did a outreach study with you guys, like using your data and stuff. And one of the things that we did really heavily around that time was like outreach via social media, which we saw to be a lot more impactful, because when people see you're a real person, not some random like email from a domain that's like trycompany.com and whatever, you know, it just resonates a lot further. So it's my hope that people get better at recognizing that there's actual people on the other side and talk to them as such, because it's just going to be a better ecosystem for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, treating people like they're people and not link targets, I think, is solid message there. So, okay, Mike, I think one of the other big things, and I get this too, is like, you know, in the new AI era, and as people take, you know, look into the new technologies, there are two problems that I'm feeling. One is it's kind of like a word soup. You know, there's a lot of jargon getting thrown around, and I am not like a technical person. So you know, when you say stuff like semantic triples and like those types of terms, they go over my head or my eyes glaze over, right? So like, what are like some practical things if you're just the average small business and you want to get ahead in AI, you want to kind of grasp some of the concepts. What are some of like the simple things that you would recommend?
Yeah, I would just say be very specific in how you write. Break your content up where you have like a clear idea in each paragraph. You're not like rambling and saying a whole bunch of different things in the same paragraph, because it just becomes easier for a large language model to extract that information. So include facts, right? Like don't say like, oh, we're the best, you know, plumber in I don't know, Camden, New Jersey or whatever. Like be real specific as to why, and say like, okay, we're the best because, you know, 80% of our jobs are, you know, not ones that we have to do over, or something like that. I don't know what plumbers actually do. But like the more you can include data point in what you're saying, the more you're going to be included in these different environments. And the other thing is it's not just about your website. It's about these communities. So like being active in subreddits that you're seeing like referenced in AI overviews and ChatGPT, posting on LinkedIn posts, like all those sorts of things are what you should be doing. Now, all the specifics like semantic triples and all that, I mean, there's tools that can help you with that. Not a lot of them, but there are a few tools that like give you that feedback. And, you know, I mean, it kind of just brings up the point that SEO software in general is pretty behind for where this stuff is. But I'm hopeful that over the course of the next 2-3 years, there's going to be the ability to catch up. But yeah, the core answer here is like, be more specific in your content. Don't be vague. Make sure you are, you know, structuring your content where it's really easy to be understood. And then that inherently makes it easy for a computer to understand it too.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned tools, and I know you've talked about this in a couple of your talks, but you guys at iPullRank created Q4ia. Can you tell us a little bit about what that tool does?
Yeah, so this is what I was saying before, where AI overviews, AI mode, and also to some degree ChatGPT, they take what you ask it and then they extrapolate a whole bunch of other queries in the background, and then they're pulling pages based on those queries as well. So it's not just what you see ranking in the classic search results for that primary query. And so there's no way for us to see what those queries are. So what we've done is we built a tool that basically follows the same methodology that Google is using Gemini 2.5, because they've basically built a specific version of Gemini 2.5 to do this. And it gives you that list of queries that are running in the background. So the idea is that you would look to see where you rank for those other queries as well, and then optimize those pages so that you can rank better in the AI overviews and AI.
Now, is this something that can also help with ChatGPT, showing up in ChatGPT and understanding how it works?
Absolutely. So
Yeah,
ChatGPT is also running synthetic queries, perhaps not the same ones as Google, but to some degree, the ones that are identified are like just expanding on what the user might be looking for. So if you say something like, who's the best plumber in Camden? It's going to say, okay, well, what are some of the common things people look for when they're asking for a plumber? Like, who's the best plumber with the highest BBB ratings or whatever? So it's going to figure those queries out, and then it's going to run those in the background. And so ChatGPT is, of course, doing something similar. It may not be the exact same queries because they have less data to pull from, but nevertheless, there's probably high overlap.
Yeah. I mean, I guess one of the reasons I asked that was because I feel like, I'm really curious to hear your take on this, but I feel like more people now are kind of trying to optimize for Google AI mode, AI overviews, and there's less of a focus on ChatGPT. I'm feeling that personally. I don't know if you feel that, but well, let me see. Do you feel that way? Is that kind of the vibe?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Google still drives like 16x the traffic of a ChatGPT. And, the reality is that 1.5 billion people use AI overviews on a monthly or daily basis. I don't know, whatever the number is. So it's way bigger than the uses of ChatGPT. So it makes sense. But nevertheless, the reality is that there are 700 million people that are using ChatGPT. So there's still some value in appearing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was kind of me. I think the general feeling as well, this was my second kind of final question, is this stuff is moving so quickly, right? There's so much to learn. There's so much to optimize for. If you want to keep up, right? Is it worth it to just kind of focus on one specific area and one specific tool? Hey, I'm just going to focus on AI mode. I want to focus on just ChatGPT. I mean, is that a good strategy, or should you just kind of is there a better guiding light where it's just I don't want to say just create great content, be a good marketer, but you know what I'm saying? There's got to be a better way for people who are not, who have your head dug into this and are following everything. I get a little locked up sometimes where it's if I optimize for this, it might change next week. Right. So what are some good guiding lights, I guess, for people to think of?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that if you're trying to simplify it down to the basics, it does come back to making good, unique, non-commodity content that's better than anyone else's, more thorough than anyone else's, speaks to the audience very specifically. Because the one thing we didn't touch on is the fact that the responses are always highly contextual to the user. So based on what they've looked at before, what they've asked for before, things like that. So the more that you target your audience, the more likely you will penetrate these kind of bubbles of AI and all that for that audience. So yeah, if you're asking me what the through line is, it is making really good content. There's this whole aspect of understanding the nuances, because at the end of the day, we want the most. We don't just want some. And that's why we dig into all these details in the way that we do.
Yeah, Mike, this stuff is fascinating. I highly recommend everybody, checks out the iPullRank blog, because Mike talks about this stuff all the time. Go check him out when he's speaking. Mike, is there anything that I didn't ask that you think is important for people to know about around kind of this intersection between AI and digital PR?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that the competition is way more fierce than it's ever been before. Cause like you just said, there's a speed aspect to all of this, not just for how quickly things are coming out, but also how quickly other people are moving because they all have the same AI tools that you do. And so I would say that whoever you are, whatever you're doing, you got to focus on what makes you unique so that you stand out because there's just so much at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, hopefully motivational words for people and not necessarily, not to scare people off. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity to stand out, and this stuff is moving fast, but yeah, kind of stick to your guns, stick to your roots as a company. And I love that message of kind of creating something better than what's out there. I kind of try to do that with the BuzzStream content, try to create something that AI can't create. So that's focusing on data, unique data, some of the stuff that you said, Mike. So I'll leave people with that. Mike, people can find you on LinkedIn. Is that kind of the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I'm still on Twitter. I'm everywhere at iPullRank.
Awesome. Well, just a quick reminder again, people like, subscribe, comment on this stuff. If you have questions about this stuff, I'm sure Mike would be more than happy to answer, or send questions my way and I can relay them to Mike. So thanks again, Mike. This has been awesome. Hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you all for listening. Have a great day.